My own son looked me dead in the eye, a smug grin plastered on his face, and told me I was about to get $15 from his mother's $160 million will. He thought he was about to become the richest man in the city. What he didn't know was that the real shock was still coming, and it wasn't for me. The lawyer's office felt cold and sterile, a stark contrast to the storm of emotions brewing inside me. My ex-wife, Eleanor, was gone. We had divorced years ago, but a part of me always held on to the memories of our happier times. Sitting across from me was our son, Michael. At 25, he looked so much like her, but his eyes held a coldness I never saw in Eleanor. Next to him was his new girlfriend, Chloe, who was practically vibrating with excitement, her eyes darting around the expensive office as if she were already measuring for new curtains. Michael had been living a lavish lifestyle, all funded by his mother. He never worked a day in his life, believing he was entitled to her fortune. Eleanor, bless her heart, had always been too soft on him, hoping he would one day mature. The lawyer, a grim-faced man named Mr. Abernathy, cleared his throat and began to read the will. He started with a few small bequests to distant relatives and charities. Michael was fidgeting, barely able to contain his impatience. He leaned forward, whispering loudly to Chloe, "Get ready, baby. Our new life is about to begin." Chloe giggled, squeezing his arm. I just sat there, silent, my grief a heavy cloak around my shoulders. I wasn't here for the money. I was here to say a final goodbye to the woman I once loved. I expected nothing. Our divorce had been amicable, but we had gone our separate ways. I had built my own life, a modest but happy one, running a small bookstore. Then Mr. Abernathy got to the main part of the will. He paused, looking over his glasses at me. "To my ex-husband, Daniel," he read, his voice flat, "I leave the sum of $15. Michael burst out laughing. It wasn't a small chuckle. It was a loud, arrogant laugh that echoed through the silent room. Chloe joined in, her laughter high-pitched and cruel. $15! Michael gasped, wiping a tear from his eye. "Dad, what are you going to do with all that cash?" "Don't spend it all in one place." He looked at me, his eyes filled with triumph and mockery. I felt a flush of anger, but I held my tongue. I simply looked at him, my expression unreadable. He expected me to be humiliated, to be broken, but something in his mother's will felt ... off. It wasn't like Eleanor to be so petty. But Michael wasn't done. He thought he had won. He believed his mother's entire fortune was his for the taking. The lawyer, however, hadn't finished. If you enjoy emotional and dramatic revenge stories, please subscribe for more. Mr. Abernathy cleared his throat again, a deliberate, sharp sound that cut through Michael's laughter. "There is," he said, holding up a single finger, a codicil. "An amendment to the will, dated 3 months ago." Michael's smile faltered. "A what? What does that mean?" he asked, his voice suddenly losing its confident edge. Chloe stopped giggling and looked confused. The lawyer ignored him and continued to read. "This codicil," he announced, his voice gaining a slight, almost imperceptible note of drama, "revokes all previous distributions of the main estate." A heavy silence fell over the room. Michael's face went pale. "What? Revokes? What are you talking about?" Mr. Abernathy looked directly at Michael. "It means, Mr. Williams, that the primary inheritance clause has been changed." He then turned a page, his movements slow and deliberate. The paper crackled in the stillness. "The new clause reads as follows," the lawyer stated, his voice ringing with finality. "After much painful consideration, I have decided to alter the distribution of my estate. My son, Michael, has shown a side of himself that I can no longer ignore or enable. His greed and his lack of respect, not just for me, but for the value of hard work and kindness, have left me with no other choice." As the lawyer read these words, you could see the color drain completely from Michael's face. He looked like he'd been punched. "What is this? This is a joke, right?" he stammered, looking from the lawyer to me. I remained silent, letting Eleanor's words do the talking. The lawyer continued. "I discovered that Michael had been manipulating me for years. He convinced me to transfer assets into accounts he controlled, telling me it was for tax purposes. He told me he was investing in promising startups, but in reality, he was squandering the money on a lifestyle of pure excess, all while telling me his ventures were on the verge of success." The will went on to detail how Eleanor had hired a private investigator a few months before her passing. She had grown suspicious of Michael's constant demands for more money and his vague excuses. The investigator uncovered everything. The wild parties, the reckless spending, the way he and Chloe would openly mock her behind her back, calling her his personal ATM. The worst part, the part that broke Eleanor's heart, was a recording the investigator captured. On it, Michael was bragging to Chloe about how he had it all figured out. He said, "Once the old lady is gone, we'll be set for life. I've got her wrapped around my little finger. She thinks I'm her brilliant businessman son." Mr. Abernathy paused and looked at Michael, whose jaw was now on the floor. He was trembling, his arrogant smirk replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated panic. Chloe had shrunk back in her chair, trying to make herself as small as possible, avoiding his gaze. The lawyer then read the final, devastating part of the codicil. "Therefore, given this painful discovery," he read, Eleanor's words echoing like a final judgment, "I hereby revoke my previous bequest to my son, Michael. He will inherit nothing from my estate." "Not a single cent." Michael shot to his feet. "Nothing! That's impossible!" "She wouldn't do that. She loved me," he yelled, his voice cracking. Mr. Abernathy held up a hand. "Please, sir. There is more." He took a deep breath before delivering the final blow. "All of my remaining assets, including all properties, stocks, and liquid cash, totaling approximately $160 million, I leave in their entirety to my ex-husband Daniel." The silence that followed was absolute. It was so quiet I could hear the frantic beating of my own heart. Michael slowly turned his head to look at me. His face was a mask of disbelief, rage, and utter despair. The son who had just laughed at me for getting $15 was now staring at the man who had inherited everything. "You," he whispered, his voice filled with venom. "You did this. You poisoned her against me." I finally spoke, my voice low and steady. "No, Michael, you did this to yourself. She loved you more than anything. All she ever wanted was for you to be a good person. You broke her heart, and this is the consequence." He lunged toward the lawyer's desk, screaming, "I'll contest it. This is fake. It's a fraud." Mr. Abernathy remained calm. "The codicil is ironclad, Mr. Williams. It was signed by your mother, witnessed by 2 independent parties, and notarized. There's also a signed affidavit from your mother detailing her reasons, along with the full report from the private investigator. There's no legal recourse." Michael stumbled backward, his face ashen. He looked at Chloe, his eyes pleading. "Chloe, baby ... we ... But Chloe was already standing up, grabbing her purse. She wouldn't even look at him. "Don't we me," she hissed. "You're a broke joke." And with that, she walked out of the office without a second glance. Michael collapsed into his chair, a broken man. The smug, arrogant son I knew was gone, replaced by a pathetic figure who had just realized he had schemed and manipulated his way into poverty. He had played a greedy game and lost spectacularly. As for me, I sat there stunned. I wasn't happy. The money meant nothing compared to the loss of Eleanor and the son I thought I had. But in that moment, I knew Eleanor had found a way to deliver one last powerful lesson from beyond. It wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. And for Michael, it was the start of a very long, very hard lesson in humility. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more Reddit-style revenge stories.